UFC 300 is right around the corner, and today, guys, we're going to break down what I think are going to be the best main event options for for that fight card, UFC 300. We're going to go ahead and break it down. I think I have a lot of good ones here. Obviously, in the last couple months, we've lost what could have been some really, really killer main events, but we're just going to go ahead and get right into it. We're going to go from the ones I'm least excited for all the way up to the ones I would be most excited for. Some of these very well could happen. Some of these, there's not a very big chance that it'll happen, but we're just going to go ahead and break it down. This is what I want. This is what you want. This is what everybody wants to see. UFC 300. Let's get right into it with number 10? 9? 10? I think it's 9. I think I did a list of 9. Colby Covington versus Islam Makhachev. Now, if you guys have been paying attention to the news recently and the gossip and whatnot in the UFC and MMA, Twitter sphere and fight media, Colby Covington has come out and said, hey, if I beat Leon and if Islam gets past Charles, I want Islam next. I want to give him the opportunity to be double champ. And honestly, I'm not going to lie. If Colby wins and if Islam retains, I don't hate that fight. I'd definitely be down for UFC 300 to be sort of like a battle of the Cold War, a Russia versus America card with Colby versus Islam at the top. You could also do like Chimaev versus Strickland on that card. If they obviously both still are in a good spot to have a fight at that point. What other fights could you make? You could make like let's see, that would be welterweight, lightweight, and middleweight. What could you do at bantamweight, Cold War? You could do like Peter Yan versus... You could do Peter versus Sean. You could do Peter Yan versus Sean, or Merab versus Sean at UFC 300. Those would also be great fights for the sort of Cold War sort of esque vibe. But anyway, like I was saying, I don't hate this card, this fight as the UFC 300 main event. Of course, there are 8 others that I like more than it, which is why this is number 9. But it would be a really fun fight. Colby Covington wins, obviously. Don't come after me in the comments. Anybody who thinks that Islam wins doesn't know anything. Maybe you do. I don't know. I actually, that was a very brash thing to say that Colby Covington wins. I haven't thought about it too much. I'm leaning towards Covington, only because Islam gets tired and Covington's got cardio for days. But yeah, I don't know. We'll never know. We may know. We will find out. That's my number 9 choice. We're going to move right along to number 8. Pereira versus Izzy. 3, 4, 7, depending on how you're counting them. I think, and let me clarify, this would be for the 205-pound belt. And this is what, to start off with, this is what has to happen for this fight to work. Obviously, Alex has to beat Yuri for the 205-pound championship, which is possible. In fact, probable, I would say. And Israel Adesanya has to get back in the cage sometime before January, probably, and have an impressive win to where you think he deserves a title shot. I did make this video one time before UFC 293, where I had this fight as number 1, because I mean, like most people, I thought that Adesanya was going to retain, and I swore that this was the fight to make UFC 300. It would have been the biggest fight. It 100% would have been the biggest fight to make at UFC 300 had Adesanya retained, and Yuri won the 205-pound belt. But now, since Izzy has lost, not only lost, but got dominated by Sean Strickland, it's just not really something I want to see right now. I really want Izzy to take a break from title fights. I am not interested at all in seeing him in another fight for gold right now. He needs to go back down or just sit out for a year. Adesanya, sit out for a year. Take time. You can come back in a year, fight like obviously it's a year from now, so who knows what the scene's going to look like. But fight like a top 5 middleweight in a year, and then we'll talk. But right now, I'm not really excited to see this fight. Obviously, like I said, if Adesanya were to come back in the next couple months, beat somebody, Alex beats Yuri, and so there's kind of legroom for it. Like if Adesanya came back at 205 and beat someone like Alexander Rakic, I'd say full steam ahead. Go ahead and make this fight. I know Rakic, of course, is a 205er, but that's what I'm talking about. But if that doesn't happen, I see no point for this, or no way that this fight. What am I trying to say here? I'm just sort of rambling at this point. You guys know what I mean. I like this fight. I don't think it happens. I don't know if I even really want it. I mean, like, I want it to happen. I want the pieces to be in place so that this happens. I just don't think now's the time, you know? Maybe I should have put this in number 9 because it sounds like I really like Islam and Covington more than this. But yeah, moving right along to number 7, we have, and I've touched on it a little bit earlier, Merab Dvalishvili versus Sean O'Malley, UFC 300 main event. I think this, right, going along with the Covington Islam talk, this would be a pretty good sort of like Cold War type. I mean, obviously, Merab's Georgian, and Georgia isn't really Russia, but it like kind of is, but it's not. It's a gray area. Anyway, this isn't Rob Devon's politics. This is Rob Devon's MMA. I think this fight would be great. Obviously, it needs to happen. Personally, I think Chito Vera is probably the one holding the title by UFC 300. I think it is. Oh, shit. Why didn't I put Chito Vera versus Sean O'Malley 3 on this list? I should have, because I think Chito beats Sean in December, or whenever they decide to fight, January maybe. In fact, they just announced the December fights, right? And it's Pantoja and Leon. What if they just waited? What if they just did Chito versus Sean 2 at UFC 300? I'd be fine with that. You know what? Screw what's on the screen. Get Merab out of here. Screw that guy. I want Chito versus Sean at UFC 300. Okay? Give it to me. Chito Vera. Let's go. We're hyped on my boy Chito. I love Chito. If you guys watched my list of my favorite fighters, he was either number 1 or number 2. Oh wait, I didn't have him in order. I had him by division. Anyway, of all of my favorite fighters, Chito is probably my number 1 or number 2 favorite fighter. I love Chito. UFC 200 or UFC 300. Chito versus Sean 2. Make it happen. All right? I want my boy with a belt. Thank you. Moving right along. We have Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. This fight, you guys know all about it. It's been on again. It's been off again. They did the season of Tough. It was a terrible season of Tough. McGregor's not in the testing pool. Get Chandler out of the testing pool. Let these guys fight roided up. I don't give a fuck. But Conor McGregor main eventing UFC 300 sounds like a great plan. Not only because he's Conor McGregor, but also because it would be a great card for Conor McGregor to leave on. He can finally retire and leave. I mean, I love McGregor. He's the guy who got me into the sport. I'm sure he's the guy who got a lot of you into the sport. But it's just his time to go. And I think UFC 300 is the perfect place to do that. So this fight, there's not really much to talk about. Obviously, it's going to be a great clash. These guys are both absolutely killer fighters. Just like from the show side of it, they really understand the art and entertainment that is fighting. So it'll be great on that front. But really, this is going to be just a lot of pitches for what I think should be Conor's sort of last foray into the U.S. or out, shit. What am I trying to say here? Maybe I'll edit this out. Maybe you guys will just get to hear how I talk to myself. I really think that this is a great fight for Conor to leave on. Chandler deserves the fight. There's nothing really more that you can say about this fight that hasn't been said in the last year, because that's how much this fight has been built up and been talked about. We still haven't seen it. UFC 300, god damn it, make it happen. There's only one other fight that I'd rather see Conor in at UFC 300, and we will get to that moving forward. But going right along on the list, I don't remember what number we're on. Pew! We have Strickland versus Adesanya 2. Now, again, I don't want to see this fight. I don't want Adesanya near the belt at all. But what I do want is Sean Strickland, the GOAT of middleweight, to have a really big crowning achievement. And I think his easiest way to do that, at least right now, can you imagine him? But what was that? That was my furnace turning on. It sounded like someone was like yelling. That was wild. I don't know if you guys heard that. Anyway, I want Sean Strickland, the GOAT of middleweight, to have a big crowning achievement at UFC 300. And I feel like the easiest way for him to do that is to face Adesanya again, which is a crazy sentence because saying Adesanya is the easiest way to do something. Had you said that, when did he lose to Pereira? In November of 2022? Right? So had you said that a year ago, you would be insane. Had you said Sean Strickland will have the easiest way to make a big name for himself against Adesanya, you would have gotten tarred and feathered. In fact, to be fair, right now, I may still get tarred and feathered. But I think Strickland will do just fine in the rematch against Adesanya. Yeah, that's the end of that thought. Honestly, I think Strickland will be fine. I don't want to see Adesanya near the belt, but I want Strickland, my boy, Kenergy himself, Sean Strickland. Man, I just love Sean Strickland so much. He's so great. I've loved him for a long time, but I've kept my fandom of him quiet because a lot of people would have been like, oh, you like Sean Strickland? Why do you not like good fighters? And I would never know how to respond. But guess what now, everybody? Who's laughing now? It's me. So that's why I'll tell everybody right now how much of a big fan I am of Colby Covington. Before he beats Leon, I'm out here right now saying he's going to win and how much I love him. He's going to beat Leon. Anyway, I digress. Sean Strickland versus Adesanya. You can do it or you cannot. I just want Sean Strickland to look good. Moving on. I call this the round robin of the lightweight belt. So this is going to be, 1, 2, 3 different possibilities for fights. And let me break them down. Of the three, the one I don't want to see the most is Volk versus Charles. While Volk versus Charles for the belt, if, say, Charles were to beat Islam, is a good fight, I don't think it just nearly has the amount of prestige or hype or anything that the other two fights would present. Those other two fights being if Charles beats Islam for the belt again, he regains his belt back. I think Charles versus Islam 3 at UFC 300, massive. Absolutely massive fight. I'd say it's probably the number one fight of these three that I would want to see. Charles versus Islam 3 at UFC 300. Debatably to determine the lightweight GOAT would be absolutely incredible, and I am all for it. If Islam were to win, Islam versus Volk 2 at UFC 300, I would again be all for. Not quite as for it as I would be for the trilogy with Charles, but if Islam wins, Volk is the guy to get in there. He is the second greatest of all time. He just is. GSP who? Exactly. Yeah, it's John Jones, Volk, Demetrius Johnson, then GSP. You can suck my dick. I don't even care. But yeah, Islam versus Volk 2 would be great. Charles versus Islam 3 would be fucking killer. Charles versus Volk, yeah, okay. Great fight. I'll watch it. But it's not how big the other two are, So, we're moving right along to what I believe is number 2 on our list. McGregor versus Diaz 3. Now, this needs to happen for 3 reasons. First reason is it would be the end of an era, right? These guys were sort of the faces of the prime 2015, 2016, 2017 hype train that was the UFC and the rise of Conor McGregor. You know, they had those first 2 bouts that were killer. You know, a big part of why people started really getting into this sport, a big part of why I got into this sport. And this would be a great way for them to both retire and both ride off into the sunset, wrapping up that part of the sport. I mean, if you think about who was on top in 2015 and 2016 when this was going down, you had Ronda Rousey, who had lost in 2015, I think, late 2015. Conor and Nate, who are here. You had Robbie Lawler, who just retired. Tyron Woodley, who is retired. You had at middleweight Bisping and Rockhold and Weidman, who were all retired. You know, an early Whitaker. At heavyweight, you had Verdum and not quite Velasquez. I mean, Velasquez wasn't super out of it, but the Stipe was just around the corner, you know. So actually, Stipe was a champion, wasn't he? I don't remember. This isn't a history lesson, but if you look back at that time period, almost everybody who was on top is either retired or pretty close to retired. This would be a great way to put a bow on it, wrap it all up, get them out of there. Also, great way to finish the rivalry. You know, it needs to finish. They're 1-1. I'm all in on that. Giant payday. I don't really have to explain why McGregor versus Diaz 3 is a big fight. Like, you guys understand it. Put a title fight underneath it. You know, underneath this, you could have Cheeto versus O'Malley if you wanted. Underneath this, you could have you could do like a Weili Zhang versus the 125-pound champion, whether that's Grasso or Shevchenko. Yeah, you can do a lot of different things to make this card cool. And I think this is a great option. In fact, I think this is the second best option for UFC 300. But let me get down right now to the number 1 possible main event for UFC 300, and I want to preface this with that the odds of this actually being the main event are extremely, extremely low. But Jesus H. Christ, if it wouldn't be the best possible UFC 300 main event that we could get. Okay? Francis Ngannou versus John Jones for the heavyweight championship belt. Yeah. So this is what would need to happen for this to occur, right? Francis Ngannou would have to either beat or put on a great showing against Tyson Fury, and John Jones would have to not retire after beating Stipe. And the UFC would have to throw buckets of money at both guys, you know, because they tried making this fight before and it never panned out. Why would this be different? I don't have an answer for that. But I mean, come on. I can't even put into words. Like, you guys understand. You guys get it. You're fans of the sport, or you wouldn't be watching this silly channel. You guys understand that Francis Ngannou versus John Jones is the biggest possible fight that could be made. It would be a fantastic fight to determine probably who is actually the greatest heavyweight of all time. Maybe the true baddest man on the planet, especially, like, say, in the year of our Lord and Savior, 2023, the year of the upset, right? Let's say Francis Ngannou beats Tyson Fury, knocks him out, right? He's not going to be the champion because it's not a title fight. It's an exhibition, I think. But let's say Francis Ngannou beats Tyson Fury, right? So we'd have the baddest man on the planet in boxing in Francis Ngannou taking on the baddest man on the planet in MMA in John Jones, who also happens to be the greatest man to ever put on a pair of gloves. You know? Like, I can't. You understand. You get it. You know why this is hyped. If you don't, go watch tennis or some lame sport, okay? Because this is what stories are. This is what movies are made of, you know? Just the unstoppable force versus the immovable object. I can use all the cliches in the book. This is the absolute fight to make. But let me know, guys, what you think should happen at UFC 300. Be sure to comment down below with your answers and what you would like to see. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter or X. Same thing. At Rob Doggin. I go ahead and post my cards and predictions over there every once in a while. Be sure to subscribe. Be nice. Donate to charity. And I will see you guys later.